Welcome to the 2022 fall season, week one of Metaphysics in the Bible. We'll focus on two words, temple and truth. How many truths can there possibly be? Where can we find this truth? There are so many awesome viewpoints out there. We will concentrate on the message left behind by our foremothers and forefathers in the place that houses the oldest calendar, the oldest language, and yes, the oldest known Bible. I'm glad you're all here with us today. So we're going to talk about what's happening in the sky. We always start off with what's happening in the sky. I'm not sure if some of you follow my posts or not, but there's so many luminaries, what NASA calls planets and what astrologers and astronomers call planets. But to me, they're just lights, they're luminaries, they're our guides. We'll show how that affects us and Mother Earth. So let's bring in this. Do you guys ever do this when you were a kid? Where you just swim around in a circle and you get a whirlpool going, right? And then I'm going to play it from here.
Now let's go.
So as you notice, it's really tough to swim backwards, right? Because the motion is going on one way. Right?
Oh man. Hey Logan, flip.
Retrograde motion of the planets is very similar. It's an actually really good analogy. I'm now going to bring in, based on stellarium, I'm going to show you what the retrograde motion of Mercury looks like, okay? So this red cross here is Mercury. This here, this bright sun, that's the sun, the one to the left here. Ready? So I'm scrolling one days at a time. As you can see, it's going forward, passes the sun, then starts going backwards retrograde. Goes forward and back. So that's the retrograde motion of the planets in the sky when you hear retrograde, okay? You'll see RX, you'll see a line, you'll see red. When you do astrology, you'll see that different connotation of a planet in retrograde. In the software that we use, it's a line, and I'll show you that. So that's what retrograde means. So what's happening in the sky right now, there's this many planets in retrograde. I won't go through the names and what they do because that's not for this meeting today, but there is that many planets in retrograde, and they've been in there for quite a while, since June, some of them, right? And they're all in a row. This backward motion affects us. It's like an internal lesson. It's an internal vibration that we actually do feel. I do medical astrology, and the way we've figured out the truth on how to do the medical astrology, it's very easy now to see what people experience, all right? And I posted here the dates when they come out for those that are interested. Those are the dates when they come out. So as you can see, January 23rd is when they all come out of retrograde, right before we head into the Phoenix Rising in April. So that's what's happening in the sky. So you got a little lesson on what retrograde motion means. So today's focus is going to be on the truth that you find in calendars, the truth that you find in languages, and the truth that you find in Bibles. And then we're going to show you that all roads lead to Egypt, all of them. The truths of calendars, the truth of languages, and the truth of Bibles. Just like the Bible has the word Egypt in over 600 and something times, that's why we went to Egypt to learn. So do you remember doing this telephone game when you sit around a campfire and whisper a sentence and how it comes out on the other end? This is what we'll show you, that this is what's happening. I got an example here. It says, all roads lead to Egypt. Next person, all toads lead to Egypt. All toads leap to crypt, and all toads leap to crib. So that's what that game is, if anybody's not familiar with it, because when you whisper it really quiet so nobody can hear it, you don't really understand it. So this is what happens with truth. And this is what's happened with the calendars, the languages, and the Bibles. And we're going to focus a little bit on that. So we're going to first start off with the truth about languages. Before we show you this little quick clip here on, and I'll scroll through it really fast. about the different languages that are shown, on how many there are. But if you remember Abdel Hakim Awyan, a beautiful brother that understands the ancient Egyptian stuff, not what academia teaches. He says, what do you mean Egypt? Gypt means grandmothers and grandfathers. Gypt means the breadcrumbs left by our foremothers and forefathers. So it's not a place, it's a place where breadcrumbs are left. Of course, we named it that, right? We will be focusing on one very powerful but mistranslated word. But first, let's look at these languages. Look how many there are. So as you can see, Egyptian is the oldest known language in hieroglyphs, in pictures, universal images that are trying to show you that you can't mistranslate them. But we've figured that out. So look how many languages there are. Look how many opportunities to misconstrue the truth. Okay? There's that many languages. All right. So we're going to ask you to focus on these three languages because they hold a path of a certain truth of one word. Egyptian, obviously, 2690. Remember, Egypt is where the breadcrumbs are left. Then we're going to talk about Sanskrit, which is not in this scroll, but at the top of the document, it talks about the Vedic Sanskrit. The earliest parts of this text may date to circa, means roughly 1500 BC. And then Hebrew in the 10th century BC. So we're going to focus on these three for this one word, for this portion of languages. The etymology of the word Lord. What does Lord mean? It's plastered all over, and we all get this feeling about the divine feminine, and how can it be a man in the clouds? Well, the etymology of Lord, when you go back to late Vedic Sanskrit, is Isha, and Isha means ruling goddess in the earlier Sanskrit, and even the Hebrew later on that we showed you, the Hebrew in the 10th century BC, had Isha as a woman. So the word Lord means a ruling goddess. It means a feminine. It means a divine feminine. So here's the locations where we got the information from. From Wikipedia, Isha, Upanishad, Sanskrit, enveloped by the Lord, or hidden in the Lord, the self. So envelope, the divine within. The divine within would need the mother's love, the love we have in ourselves, that inner child, that we love that inner child, that we want it to come out and play, but it's not very fun out, but we're going to make it there. And this is upon us. This website called The Bump has the definition of Isha, one who protects. Mother protects. This name comes from a Sanskrit word that means the ruling goddess. Even they knew that. Or the ruler, i.e. a mother's love. And then woman of the book. You can see they have Hebrew writing there. In Hebrew, the ruling goddess in Sanskrit is woman. Emerges triumphant as she endures the tests that prove her strength and infinite endurance. In other words, the love of a mother always comes back. And that's part of the Christ consciousness, our Christ raising. So we have an example of how over the years, the languages have screwed up one word. We're only talking one word. That's all we're going to do today is the one word in languages. But it's an important one. It's a really strong one. So when we translated the Egyptian hieroglyphs to modern languages, man's ego forgot how they came into this world. And the only way is through the mother's waters. In Italian, that's called mare. That's the sea. That's the waters. And mare is Mary. And that's where you get the word Mary from. Now, if anybody wants to interrupt and ask any questions, I forgot to say that, it's okay. I want to open up this space. I want you to challenge what you hear. Ask questions. So please interrupt. If anybody's got any questions, you can speak up. Okay, we're going to move on to the truths in the Bible. Look how many Bible translations there are. It's no wonder why we don't all agree on religions. Where is the truth? The truth is that the life of Christ was put there in the scriptures in concrete in 2000 BC at the Hathor temple, Dendra's zodiac in Egypt. This is the missing link. Now let's look at 500 BC, completion of all original Hebrew manuscripts, which make up the 39 books of the Old Testament. So somewhere between 500 AD, when we translated it over 500 languages, and between 500 BC, because the Hebrew at least had woman in there, somewhere somebody changed that to a man. The word Lord got put in there as a man instead of the ruling goddess. And this is truth. So let's ask Moses. Because we know this has been going on. So Moses, let me move this up a little bit because that's right in there. So in 1400 BC, the first written word of God, the 10 Commandments, delivered to Moses. Well, that was 1400, and we know that we have proof that in 1500 BC, Isha was ruling goddess. So what did he write? Did it get slightly changed from there? Probably not. He probably had the word Isha. That's a good question. But the tablets broke, right? We don't have them. Any questions? So now applying the true meaning of the word Lord in verses with truth. And this is such a good feel-good now when you read the Bible. So the book of Joshua, we will worship and obey the ruling goddess, which is love, purity. Now therefore, fear the ruling goddess, serve her in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served. Serve the ruling goddess. Remember, I changed ruling goddess out for Lord. What they're telling us here is there's no humans that you must worship. That's idolatry. So when you start placing these truths in the Bible, it's a feel-good. Now, book of 1 Samuel, chapter 12. Don't chase after ghost gods. That's the title. In verse 24, only fear the ruling goddess and serve her in truth with all your heart, love, for consider what great things she has done for you. Yeah, and that's, to me, is the weighing of the heart. So make sure we stay in the truth of love. Only got one more. Truth in the Bible. Book of 2 Samuel. David becomes king of Judah. And now may the ruling goddess show kindness and truth to you. Truth of love. I will also repay you the kindness because you have done this thing. You've planted seeds of love. Love is the way home. Any questions? We're going to move on to calendars. What's the truth in calendars? So let's show you a quick list of all the different calendars. So here you go, a bunch of calendars. What do we need a calendar for, right? Well, we know that harvest season is really important, which I'm so glad that Susan talked about that. And who else? I think it was Henry. Because harvest is really important for this discussion. So look at all these calendars. Why so many calendars? Well, because if we don't know the truth of what a calendar is supposed to give us, how will we know? These are all misunderstandings. Are we lost? You say you want a revelation? Hold on, because we're going to show you a revelation. So we're going to bring in, although the Egyptian calendar is older than the ancient India calendar that Wikipedia has, but we're going to use that one. Why did they pick October 527 BCE? What's so special is that? Why did they start the calendar on 527 BCE? Interesting. And this is what we're going to show you. Move this out of the way for a second. We're going to concentrate on two dates, the 527 BC and the 31 AD. 31 AD is closer, but it's something important that we have to show that's very similar to 527 BC. But this scene, we all know, this scene is one that is not agreed upon. by many cultures. But we're going to share to you what this scene really means. So you have Jesus, the Son, and the two Marys, Virgin Mary and Mary Magdalene. So let's bring in what the Egyptians called this scene. The sun is you, what the Egyptians call Horus, hours, the hours on a clock, your journey here of reincarnations, transmigrations, whatever you call it, learning about how to be pure and one love and having these experiences, the human experience, but you're a spirit. So the Egyptians call the Virgin Mary Isis. The Greeks call it Eris, and Eris is the name that they use in astrology and what NASA names these luminaries. And then over here you got Juno, which is Nephthys, which is Mary Magdalene. Nephthys is the Egyptian name, Juno is the Greek name. So why am I showing you this? Well, there's a name for them from the Egyptians, and we know that the Egyptian calendar and the Egyptian Bible brings out a bunch of truths. What truths could this possibly bring out in a calendar? So now we're going to bring in, here we go. Here's what happened in the sky in 31 AD. This line represents on the circle harvest time, the fall equinox that we just experienced, September 22nd. But that's the September 22nd. I won't get into too much detail here. Is just of the sun, but there's also a star equinox when it aligns with Spica, because Spica sits at the location of harvest time. So you have Eris, because that's a symbol of Eris, the sun, you, and Mary Magdalene, Juno, or Nephthys. They're at the cross, 0, 0, 0. They're sitting there at the fall equinox, when we lose our consciousness, when we lose our Christ consciousness. This is when we fell from the Aryan age into the Piscean age, and hence the two fish. That's why Jesus has the two symbols of the fish. So it's an astrological, but don't make it sound mechanical, because this is how things work. This is how love comes back to us. These reincarnations always have light coming back to us to give us karma. But mostly good karma if you had a great life, and not so good karma if you've been vibrating these waters in a not good way. Hence, we got to get back to love. So now we're going to bring in the 5/27 date. Remember, this is when the ancient Indian calendar started. They started their calendar at Jesus dying on the cross. So these are both Jesus dying on the cross. It's a cycle. You got Spica, the sun, both Marys sitting on the cross when we lose consciousness. So we come in and out of consciousness no different than we go to sleep every day, no different than the sun sets and we go into the autumnal equinox, right? When we go to sleep. No different than every breath we take in and out, no different with every heartbeat. So this is the start of the ancient Indian calendar. This is what happened in the sky. So the message is there. The Bible, the calendar, and language. The truth is that we are these beautiful beings having a human experience. We've had Alzheimer's for the last 2,000 years when our consciousness went to sleep. Why did we stay here? Maybe we wanted to stay here to help a loved one find the truth, because we're finding the truth again. It's kind of beautiful. It's really beautiful. So we showed you a simple but very important truth in language, in the Bible, and the calendar of the stars. All roads lead to Egypt. Remember, Egypt is the breadcrumbs left by our foremothers and forefathers to remember the ruling goddess, which is pure love. So we're just going to talk briefly. We're almost done here. The Temple of Horus in Idufu is about you. I'm going to read this verse from the book of John, chapter 2, Jesus in Jerusalem at Passover. This is when your Christ consciousness gets raised at Passover. This is you. Verse 19, Jesus answered them, destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days. So he's talking about idolatry and misinterpretations. Destroy it. They replied, it has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to raise it in 3 days? But the temple he had spoken of, Jesus Christ, was his body. So get rid of the materialistic temple and raise your temple. You see, our foremothers and forefathers, how can you explain something metaphysically, spiritually, without material? That's what the Egyptians did, our foremothers and forefathers. They built monuments with all the information to describe our journey as spirits. Well, spirits don't have material, but you had to make it. So everybody took this literally. We all did. We all took what was left on the Egyptian walls literally, and it kept getting mistranslated because they couldn't find the truth in it, because they couldn't see the forest through the trees. So the temple is your temple, and the priest is you. It's said that the priests, before entering the temple of Horus, would have to state 42 spiritual laws. But the priest is you, and you are the temple. So when you're stating spiritual laws, it means the intentions of being loving. The love of our Egypt, or foremothers and forefathers, left this material temple again. For us, knowing that one day we would die on the cross, 31 AD, and it's a cycle, 537. If you add those two up, you get 558. And you know that number 558 we've been talking about is the cycle between Phoenix risings. So this is more proof that we've uncovered. Because we die on the cross and we get spiritual Alzheimer's. And we've left this message for when we wake, that we can go see who we really are. These are the 42 spiritual laws, the answers to life's exam. These intentions are meant to measure if your heart is as light as a feather. To enter your own temple, Horus, which is you, you should allow these into your core of your being. This is how you rebuild your temple. And I know everybody here is working on it, but just know this is the truth. And it's been written on walls for over 3,000 years ago for us to refine who we really are. It's invigorating. The truth is in the stars. The truth is in the light. The truth is in spirit. I'm not sure where this following quote came from, nor can I find it anywhere now. But it says, if we knew what the verses in the Bible really meant, then it might be okay to state them in a crowd of willful listeners. This is kind of ironic that we're doing this in this small group. We keep trying to get to the physical temple because of language, calendars, and Bibles being misinterpreted. And now we're forming small groups to refine the lost truth. It's so invigorating. This is raising our spiritual temple. So this raising of our spirituality is obviously now upon us. Look at everybody. There's so many people are raising their spirituality, their Christ consciousness. Is it in the sky that we arise from the cross? I know many of you have seen some of this stuff we've all posted, but yes, we're upon a phoenix rising, which is also displayed in the stars. What does this mean? Well, we get induced by pure love, and this manifests in the book of Revelation, namely Revelation 12:1. So in 12:1, instead of the Christ dying on the cross, the Christ raises on the cross in the east, the true Easter, in Aries, arise. So Revelation 12:1 says, now a great sign appeared in the heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet. And this alignment with the mother and the sun and the moon under her feet, which happens every 558 years, this exact alignment happens on April 15th, 2023. Why is it different now? Because we're entering John the Baptist, where we get baptized with the etheric waters, in other words, the love of the mother. And hence we are being shown love. And we're on our spiritual journey to raise our temple. And that's all I had for today.